نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح لهذه الأمة وأما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي سيدنا محمد صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه ويقول الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم كتابه وهو أصدق القائلين بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون وفي مكان آخر بعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما صدق الله العظيم ثم أما بعد. Brothers and sisters, before I start actually, brothers, let's all try to move up as much as we can. There's plenty of empty spots. For the people who come late, let them take the back rows, take their reward while you can. We start, of course, by praising Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, for truly to Allah is all praise, and we seek Allah's protection from the evils of ourselves and from our actions. From whoever Allah guides, there is none who can misguide him, and whoever Allah allows to go astray, and there is none who can guide him, there is no way for him to be guided. Inshallah, I want to start my khutbah with a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And we'll go from there, inshallah. So the hadith is An ibn Umar, radiallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Umar, his Umar ibn Khattab's son. And it starts, Ala kullukum ra' wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatih. Behold, each of you is a shepherd, is in charge of something. Wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatih. And each of you will be questioned by Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala about his flock, about what he is in charge of. And the Prophet goes on to give some examples. فَالْأَمِيرُ الَّذِي عَلَى النَّاسِ رَاعٍ وَهُوَ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. The leader is the one who, the people are his flock. He is the shepherd of the people, and he will be questioned about them. وَالرَّجُلُ رَاعٍ عَلَى أَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ وَهُوَ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْهُمْ. The man is the shepherd, is in charge of the people of his house, and he will be questioned about them. وَالْمَرْأَةُ رَاعِيَةٌ عَلَى بَيْتِ بَعْلِهَا وَبَيْتِ زَوْجِهَا وَوَلَدِهِ وَهِيَ مَسْئُولَةٌ عَنْهُ. The woman is the shepherd, is in charge of the house of her husband and of his children, and she will be questioned about them. وَالْعَبْدُ رَاعٍ عَلَى مَالِ سَيِّدِهِ وَهُوَ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْهُ. And the servant, the slave, is in charge of the property of his master, and he will be questioned about it. أَلَا فَكُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Behold, is not each of you a shepherd? Is not each of you in charge of something? And each of you will be questioned by Allah about it. He says that again, he repeats the beginning of the hadith again for emphasis. And we see, the way the hadith is structured, that the Prophet ﷺ, he says something, and he gives us some examples. And he says, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ. Every one of you is a shepherd, is in charge of something. And the examples he gives illustrate that. He starts at the top with the easiest example. A leader is in charge of people. And so, he's accountable to Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala for the people that he's in charge of. And then he says every day, your everyday man and woman, they're in charge of something. They're the shepherds of something, and they'll be questioned by Allah. They're accountable to Allah for what they're in charge of. And then he goes even further. He says even the slave, the servant, we might forget about them. We know that servants, or rather slaves, are exempt from coming to Jum'ah. Like that's an exemption they're given. So even despite that status, even they are in charge of something. He says about the property of their master, and even they will be questioned about it. And they're accountable to Allah for what they're in charge of. And I wanted to discuss this hadith, by the way, the hadith al-muttafaqun alayh, which means it's agreed upon. It's in both Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, and that's the highest grade of authenticity, and Allah knows best. I wanted to talk about this hadith in the context of, responsibility and power. And I'll start off with a few quotes from people who are not necessarily, not Muslim, but more popular culture, just to show this is not a foreign concept, this is not just an Islamic concept. That's a very well-known thing, what power can do and what responsibility means. The first one's probably one we've all heard. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. It's from Abraham Lincoln. Nearly all men can stand adversity. So everyone, look around you. If anyone's going through hard times, they can take it. But the way that you truly get to know who someone is and what they're capable of is if you give them power. Give them the chance to show you who they are, and they'll show you who they are. The next one's one that we've also all heard, but we may not have seen who it's attributed to. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men, meaning powerful men, are almost always bad men. That's from Lord Acton, also 1800s. Again, and this is something that's common. We see it anywhere we look. Look at any of the world leaders today. In the U.S. especially, given how our political, we're probably all more well versed, in the U.S. politics. Someone's elected governor or representative or senator or even president. Their first thought isn't, what can I do for my people? Their first thought is, what can I do to get reelected? What do I have to do so that I can be here in 2 years, in 6 years, in 4 years? What do I have to do in order to get reelected? And then let me go and form my policies and make my alliances based on that. Not based on what's good for the 300 million citizens, but based on what's good for the one, the me. And that's where that comes in. And then a more recent quote, and I know the younger people in the audience may appreciate this one more. With great power comes great responsibility, which is from Spider-Man, but it doesn't diminish how, the veracity of the quote, how true the quote is. With great power comes great responsibility, and actually, even more true is the other way around. When you're given a great responsibility, you realize that you need to have some power in order to actually take charge. If your boss comes to you and says, you're responsible for this project, you're going to be, if it goes bad, you're going to be blamed. If it goes well, you're going to be praised for it. But your friend over there is going to make all the decisions. He's going to have final say. You're going to say no, thank you. If you're going to make me responsible, then I need to be able to actually make the decisions, and that's the basis of that. And with regard to leaders, moving on in the topics and showing really what it means when you have great power, you take responsibility and who your responsibility is to. I want to narrate a story from the time of the Khilafah of Umar ibn al-Khattab. And Umar radiallahu anhu, he was given the title of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the leader of the believers. If you go to anyone and say, who's Amir al-Mu'mineen? They're not going to ask, what do you mean? What time are you talking about? Are you talking about the Umayyad dynasty, the Basids? No, they're going to say Umar ibn al-Khattab. That's his title. And it's a very noble title. And we'll see what he did and how he acted, to earn that title and to carry out his responsibilities. So the story begins with Umar and his servant Asam walking through the desert at night. There's going around. This is like outskirts of Medina, not a very well-inhabited place, and they see a fire. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, let's go check this out. There's a fire. Let's see what these people are up to. So they come up to it, and they see a woman, a mother, and her children. The children are crying, and the woman is holding a pot of water over the fire, just boiling some water. And so Umar radiallahu anhu, he's confused by this, and he asks about what's going on. What are you doing? Why are the children crying? And the mother responds, the children are hungry. We don't have anything to eat, so they're crying because they're hungry. And I don't even have anything. If I had any food, I'd give it to them, but I don't even have that. So I'm boiling some water so they think I'm preparing something, and maybe it quiets them down a bit, and maybe they can go to sleep, even though their stomachs are empty. So look at just how low she's had to go. She's not even a matter of giving your own plate to your children or anything like that. She's reduced to just boiling water to kind of trick them and to think that she's preparing something. And the woman continues. And she says, and Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala on the Day of Judgment will judge between me and Umar for this. She doesn't know that she's talking to Umar. She thinks it's just some man who saw her and came along. And so Umar radiallahu anhu, now he definitely doesn't want to give away his identity. But he says, what do you mean? How can Umar be, what can Umar do about this? And the woman, she says, Umar is our Khalifa, he's our leader, and a leader should always be aware of his people and of his people's affairs. And he should be taking care of them. So this strikes Umar, this touches Umar, and he actually goes with Aslam to kind of remedy the situation. So they go to Bayt al-Mal, which is the treasury, but also where the zakat is kept, or any donations for zakat. And obviously this woman is in need of zakat. So they go and they get some food, some clothes, some money, and kind of put it all into a sack. And then Umar tells his servant Aslam, can you put this sack on my back? I'm going to carry it to the woman. And Aslam says, hold up. I'm the servant. This is what I'm here for. Why would you want to carry it? I know you're a big, strong guy, but you're the big, strong guy. You're the leader of the believers. This is not your job. And so Umar says, and listen to his attitude and the way that, how he's thinking. He says, oh yeah, are you also going to carry my load on the Day of Judgment? Aslam's offering to carry, this sack for him because, he's the leader he's Amir al-Mu'mineen. Aslam's a servant. He says, let me do it for you. Umar, he realizes with great power comes great responsibility. He realizes this. And it's not a responsibility to the people. It's not a responsibility to your friends. It's not a responsibility to your shareholders, to your board of directors. The responsibility isn't to any of these people. It's not a responsibility to your country, to the world, none of that. He realizes that with the great power that he's been given as the Khalifa, as the Amir al-Mu'mineen, his responsibility, his accountability is to Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. And that's what the woman reminded him of, that Allah will judge between me and Umar for this. Not, so my friends will judge between me and Umar. Not the council, that his advisors will judge between. No. Allah will judge. And Umar realizes this. So Aslam, he's not going to argue with that. So he lets Umar carry the sack. And Umar, he goes back, he actually cooks a meal for the woman. And there's a little bit of left over after everyone's eaten. So he packs that away for the breakfast. And the woman says to him, you came to us, you saw us in a bad situation, and you helped us out. You deserve to be the Khalifa more than Umar. And so at this point, Umar, he says, if you come to the Khalifa's office, you'll find me there. Just kind of saying, by the way, my name's Umar. And he stays with them for a little longer. The children, they just ate. They're not going to go to sleep immediately. We know how kids are. If you give them a little bit of food, they'll go crazy. So they're playing around. They're happy. They're jumping. And he stays with them a little while. And then when he and Aslam are walking back to finish the story, he says to Aslam, do you know why I stayed? I didn't have to stay. I'm busy. I'm a Khalifa. I have things to do. But do you know why I stayed? And Aslam says, no, actually, I don't. You didn't let me carry the sack. I have no idea what you're thinking. So tell me, why did you stay? And Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, I stayed because when I first came to them, I saw that they were crying, and the mother was worried, and she didn't have anything to do. So I felt it necessary to leave them after seeing them and the children laughing and the woman content and happy. That's how he was thinking. That's what he felt as a leader. And this isn't a power broker that he's dealing with. This isn't someone who's going to donate to his campaign. This isn't someone who will be able to influence voters or whatever it is. This is an everyday individual that he went and he helped, because that's what a leader, that's the responsibility the leader has, and that's the way he was thinking. I want to continue because the way the Prophet ﷺ, he structured the hadith, as I said, he mentioned the Al-Amir first, and then he mentioned everyday, Joes and Janes, man and woman. So I want to actually give a story, or rather a news item, from relatively recently, that kind of illustrates this power and responsibility. I'm going to say two words, and it might strike a few of you too close to home, but Wells Fargo. For those of you who don't know, about 3 months ago or so, October, November, Wells Fargo was hit with this scandal where they had about 5,000 or so employees who were found to have been creating fake accounts. They had access to people's social security numbers and their information, but they would create fake accounts with that. Maybe fake credit cards so they can charge some extra fees, things like that. And after some investigation, the reason for this, the reason that they were doing this was found. And the reason they're doing it is because they have these quotas to hit, or these incentives. That their boss says, okay, in 1 month you have to create 50 new accounts. That's your goal. If you can create 100, you get a 20% bonus. So you have your quotas and you have your incentives. And I just throw out some numbers. I don't know the actual numbers. I have no idea what they are. But that's the kind of thing that they were given. And so these people, maybe that's, October 25th, 26th, 27th, and they're at 25 accounts. And I said, I'm going at less than 1 account per day. There's no way I can hit 50. So what do? Oh, hey, I have this person's information. Let me create an account for them. No one will know. I'll close the account after, in November. Hopefully nothing will happen. So let me create this, and then actually I can open it again in November and say, hey, I opened another account. So they're thinking like this. And obviously, it was 5,000 plus employees, millions of accounts were created in this manner. And Wells Fargo got hit with a huge fine and all that. But when we look at this, and we ask, what brought these people to do this? Maybe they were in hard times, sure. Maybe they felt, oh, there's no way, if I don't do this, my boss will fire me, and I won't have a job, and I won't have any money, and I need to feed my kids. Maybe they're coming from a good place. What are they forgetting? What are they forgetting? And I mentioned it when I said, well, Umar remembered. They're forgetting their accountability isn't to their CEO, isn't to their manager, isn't to the board of directors, isn't to the shareholders. Their money isn't coming from, the one who determines just how much they'll make isn't going to be their manager or their CEO. The one who's going to ask them how they earned their money isn't their manager or CEO. The one who's going to ask them how they earn their money and the one who's going to determine exactly how much they earn is Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. And inshallah, in the second khutbah, I'll get to another story that kind of illustrates this in even more detail. But that's the crux of the matter, is that no matter what we're doing, these aren't leaders, these people, as far as they're not leaders. These aren't, your managers, these are the, mid-level, low-level employees that are doing this. And so, we look at this and we have to say, that this idea of accountability, we think that we're accountable to certain people, but we have to remember, we have to remember that above everyone who has knowledge, who has power, who has this and who has that, there's Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. He's the one to whom we are truly accountable. I mentioned the quote earlier, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And yet in the story of Umar radiallahu anhu, we saw that he was willing to go out of his way to help a random woman, a random poor woman who probably would have no effect on his khilafah, on his life, had he not chosen to go help her. And he had absolute power. The Khalifa, the Muslims, you get to make all decisions. That's absolute power. But Umar radiallahu anhu, he realized, and the reason he wasn't corrupted absolutely, that he realized that he doesn't really have absolute power. He doesn't really have the power. Yeah, he gets to make some decisions, but the true power is with Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, and that's what we need to remember. And that applies, look at yourself. The Prophet ﷺ, each one of you. He didn't say man or woman. He didn't specify rather man or woman. He didn't specify child or adult. He didn't specify, station in life or how much you're making. He said each one of you, no matter what, is a ra'i, is a shepherd, is responsible for something. So when you're a student, and you may be tempted to cheat on an exam because you think, I'm accountable to my teacher and to my parents for, getting a good grade. Remember that you're also accountable to Allah. And your teacher and your parents can forgive you for getting one bad grade. But can a Muslim be a liar? Can a Muslim be a cheater? As the hadith goes, the answer is no. We're accountable to Allah. Again, for teachers, same thing. That we, as teachers, I've been in both situations, alhamdulillah, that as teachers, we're in charge of the people that we're teaching. We're in charge of their knowledge and giving them the correct knowledge. And so to remember that when we're teaching, and remember, do our best to make sure that our students learn. That's the job of the teacher. Same thing with parents and children. And actually I'll get to that even once in Khutbah, with the parents and children. And one more that I want to mention before I go to the second khutbah, inshallah, is, and this applies to everyone in this masjid, that when you visit a masjid, when you walk in to pray, or just to make wudu, or just to visit someone or meet up with someone for an event, and you're using the masjid, you have a responsibility to that masjid. I'm not talking about fiscal responsibility or anything like that. I mean to keep that masjid clean. To keep that masjid clean. We shouldn't have to have Brother Arif and Brother Muhammad and Imam Shibli sitting up here every night, Aisha, saying the bathroom was found dirty again, or the bathroom was, the things were clogged, or there's a whole mess around half the stalls, or things like that. We shouldn't have to say that there's a trail of water leading out of the bathroom into the musalla. We shouldn't have to hear that. Because each of us has that responsibility. And as a Muslim, what we should remember is when you go to a place, any place, leave it cleaner than you found it. If you remember that, you'll never be accused of being dirty again. Leave it cleaner than you found it. If you found it spick and span, then you have to leave it spick and span. If you found it a little dirty, clean that up. That's something that we can do. So, to kind of wrap it up, let's all remember that we are all accountable, not just to each other, but ultimately to Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, and to remember that and to live our lives by that. وَقُولُ قَوْلِي هَذَا وَاسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ لِي وَلَكُمْ فَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. الحمد لله الذي أنعم علينا بنعمة الإسلام وحبب إلينا الإيمان وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد. So one phrase, especially all the events that are currently going on the past week and even leading up to last Friday, one phrase that we were all told to remember is Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. And we're told to remember this phrase for the ni'mal wakeel, that Allah is the best of protectors, that Allah is the best disposer of affairs. And I feel like some of us, maybe I'm speaking only of myself, we almost gloss over the part that says Hasbunallah. The part that says Allah is sufficient for us, that Allah is the one to whom we are accountable. And to illustrate, a story about what it means to live Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. It's actually another story from the time of Umar radiallahu anhu. And it again starts with him walking around, but this time with Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he's in disguise, he's the Khalifa, he's walking around, he doesn't want to be noticed. He wants to see what the people are doing without, getting surrounded and people taking selfies with him and all that. So he's walking around in disguise. And they're in a poorer neighborhood, small houses, if they even have roofs, whatever it is. And he overhears an argument between a mother and a daughter. And so he and Ibn Abbas, they stop to listen, because nothing else is really happening. It's nighttime, everyone's going to bed. But they're kind of intrigued by this. And they hear the mother telling the daughter, we have some milk to sell tomorrow, but we don't have enough. So add some water to the milk so that we have more to sell and we can actually live off, what we make from it. Add some water, no one will know. We used to do this before we became Muslim. No one will know, it's fine. We need to make money. We have no other way to make the money. And the daughter replies, she says, the Khalifa, when he's taught us about Islam, he said that we can't be deceitful. We can't do that. So, we shouldn't be adding water to the milk. And the mother says, Khalifa won't know. He's forgotten us. That's why we're like this. That's why we have no other choice. And the daughter replies, no, but that would still be unlawful income. I don't want to deceive other Muslims. I don't want to do that. And they're going back and forth. The mother says, the Khalifa is not here. His officers aren't here. They're not going to see. They're not going to see what you're doing. So it's fine. In fact, if you don't want to do it, it's fine. I'll do it myself after you sleep. Plausible deniability, all that. It won't be your burden to carry. And the daughter, she says, no. It doesn't matter whether Umar sees. Or whether or not he sees, the God of Umar, Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, He's the one who sees us. He's the one who's going to take us to task for it if we do that. So the mother's not going to argue at that point. So they both actually go to sleep. And Umar radiallahu anhu, he and Ibn Abbas, they heard the whole thing, and they're intrigued by it. So actually the next morning, Umar radiallahu anhu, he goes to the market where this mother and daughter are selling the milk. And they had no idea he listened. They had no idea, they probably didn't recognize him. He said, hey, can I have a little milk? And he paid them for the milk, and he takes a sip. And he's pleasantly surprised. There's no water in the milk. It's pure milk. It's good milk. So he's very happy about this. So he goes back to Ibn Abbas and he says, that daughter won. She stuck to her principles, and she did what was right. And so she should be rewarded. So he calls the daughter to his court, daughter and her mother actually, and they both come. And Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, you know what? Like I heard the argument you guys had last night. I was there. Remember the mother was saying, he's forgotten us, he's not here. So Umar says, actually I was there. And I heard your argument. And I was very happy when I saw that you did not actually dilute the milk. And he's talking to the daughter, this is the kind of faith and belief that we expect from us. And I actually want, I'm so impressed by that I actually want you to get married to one of my sons. So I actually want to pause on that. And, I've said sometimes, I remind myself before I'm interview, this part's especially true. Look at his reasons for choosing this daughter to, as a suitable spouse. He's not worried about how she looks. That wasn't even mentioned in the story. He's not worried about her family or her station in life or how much she's making. Because looks and beauty, that fades. What's good one day can be gone the next. That's especially true of status and wealth as well. That, one day in 2007 you have a bunch of money. The next day the stock market crashes. 8 years later the Dow hits 20,000, you have money again. It ebbs and flows. Wealth is something that comes and goes. Fame, position, all this is something that comes and goes. But he's making his decision based on one thing only. And the one thing that we should all be worried about, which is the faith and the devotion to Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala that this young woman had. And any relationship, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a business arrangement, that is founded on that, is destined for success both in this life and in the hereafter. And we know that. There's the hadith about the 7 who are shaved on the Day of Judgment. One of the 7 is 2 men who come to the masjid, or who meet up for Allah's sake, and who leave for Allah's sake, and that's it. That's the only reason that they're meeting up and they're friends with each other, and they're seeing each other is for that. And that's one of the groups that's shaved on the Day of Judgment. And now back to the story to kind of tie it up. The mother was saying to her daughter, we need to do this, we need to dilute the milk in order to have enough to live. But the daughter said no. She's living hasbunallah. Allah is the one that we need to trust, and that should be, we don't need to worry about how much milk we sell. Let's trust Allah. Allah has told us not to do this, let's not do this. Wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is the best one who's going to dispose of our affairs. She slept that night in a house that was tiny, without knowing whether she'll make enough the next day. And because she said hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, she lived it. She went from pauper to princess. She's getting married to the son of the Khalifa. And that's how Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala shows that He's ni'mal wakeel, that He's the best one. We just have to trust Him, and we have to live that trust. And Allah will take care of the rest. But we still have to do our part. And to finish that off, the story, to show that it's a continuing thing. The grandson of this young woman was someone who we call the 5th righteously guided Khalifa, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. So not even that this was something that was restricted to the young woman, that blessing continued into her offspring. And Allah knows best. So, to end, inshallah, the one thing that I remind myself of, and I want all of you to take home, inshallah, is when we say hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, let's live it. Let's live it. Let's live as though hasbunallah, that Allah is the one to whom we are accountable. And once we do that, we will find that He is truly ni'mal wakeel. Whatever I have said that is beneficial or correct, that's from the mercy of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, and I ask Him to reward us for that. And whatever I said that is incorrect or harmful, that's from the flaws of myself, and I ask Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala to forgive me for that and to keep you safe from it.
Ameen.
And I ask Allah to let us live, hasbunallah ni'mal wakeel, to remember that and to live it. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب القبر وقنا عذاب الميزان. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات فإنك يا مولانا سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداء الدين واحمي حوزة الإسلام يا رب العالمين. اللهم اهدنا واهد بنا واجعلنا هداة مهتدين لا ضالين مضلين يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقم الصلاة.